I think looking at the success of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Princess Peach Showtime, and perhaps to a lesser extent, Unicorn Overlord, is demonstrating where gaming has been going for a long while now. Where game journalists will not cover certain games, they will not give certain games positive reviews. The industry, the gaming YouTubers, the shills, the Twitter users, they'll talk about other games, games like Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin, while ignoring all of the good Nintendo games, while the good Nintendo games continue to sell well, continue to become more popular than the competition, and continue to succeed in spite of all this opposition, right? This has been the trend for the past couple of years, right? Where people are trying to trick you into thinking the Switch is a declining platform, right? That has been the rallying cry of the anti-Nintendo movement over the past several years, has been like, oh, nobody's talking about that game. We saw this with Princess Peach Showtime, Mario Wonder, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Fire Emblem Engage, right? Basically everything. Soraya and the Lost Demon, and yet, like, I think it's safe to say all of these games did fairly well for themselves, right? Bayonetta 3, No More Heroes 3, like Shin Megami Tensei 5. Right? For a long time, a lot of people were saying Shin Megami Tensei 5 was terrible until it got like a multi-platform confirmed. So, like, when you look at what's going on here with this community, with the gaming community, it couldn't be more obvious that like the entire online gaming community is completely out of touch with what the market is responding to. They don't know what people are actually buying and playing, because it couldn't be more obvious to me, someone who actually talks to girls, that Princess Peach Showtime is exceedingly popular. It is doing very, very well with its target demographic, right? It is an extremely good game. And we're still seeing people like try to like wring their hands about it, like try to damage control for it. You're still seeing people try to sell you that like, oh, this is going to be the last game for Switch ever, when we still haven't gotten a new console announcement, right? Like, again, this is the same thing we keep seeing like every game release now. Endless Ocean is coming out in May. Like, everybody's already writing that off, even though it looks excellent, right? Like, they're trying everything they can to keep the discussion towards Nintendo negative. But the reality of the situation is that the console is still doing extremely well, even in this rather lackluster year. Yes, there have been a lot of really good games this year, but I haven't been this let down by a Switch year since 2018, right? Like, I did not that nothing good came out in 2018, right? So for me personally, um, like, looking at this, I do think it needs to be acknowledged more that the um, the gaming journalism industry, right, the people who talk about games online are completely out of touch with reality. All they try to do these days, right now, is try to convince you that the Wii U is a failure and that nothing good came out that console generation. And like, they're not really talking about the games that are coming out now. In fact, they're still doing the same things they were doing back in the Wii U generation, like refusing to talk about all these great games that have come out. But again, the illusion is crumbling. I do think more and more people are starting to become aware that like they can't take these gaming YouTubers seriously, right? We saw a lot of pushback to the Wii U revisionism, where a lot of people tried to say the Wii U was terrible and that nobody liked it, which is not true at all. That so it is, I think, going to be more and more evident as the years go on just how popular Nintendo actually is, right? Like, the people who scream and like rave and like cope about how Nintendo is doing well are just going to be outnumbered by actual fans. That has been the case for a very long time, but I'd say over the past 20 years, all of these people had a monopoly on the online gaming space, right? They were the people controlling the forums. These people controlled NeoGAF. They controlled YouTube. They had like all their own little channels. Every time they would fight, they would split off their channels and just continue doing the same thing, like still continuing to pretend that Nintendo is evil, right? Like, justifying piracy, pretending PlayStation is a viable competitor, like doing all this like terrible stuff that's not really talking about video games. right? And that is like the core issue of like the online gaming community right now, as I see it, is that nobody really talks about the video games. It's all about sales numbers. It's all about like misrepresenting like information that the companies have given out, right? Like, how many times have we seen people like release new information, these leaks on upcoming Nintendo hardware? Right, in a desperate attempt to try to pretend that the Switch is on the verge of being replaced because, ooh, it's not doing as well as people thought, when it's well on its way to becoming the best selling console ever made. Right, like, the industry is crumbling, Review Tech USA is a really good example of that. He's spiraling down the drain. He's becoming irrelevant. He knows it. Bookie 2988 is done. Like, IGN. Like, there's been speculation with Gamergate too that like a lot of the traffic towards sites like IGN are botted. And I would not be surprised by that because I personally have not been on IGN in probably over a decade. I make fun of anyone who goes on there, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, like nobody who's serious about the hobby takes game journalism seriously at all. And that mindset, I think, has been seeping into the mainstream since The Last of Us Part 2 came out. It's been happening since Gamergate, but it's been slowly just building and building until The Last of Us Part 2 released, right? And now we're seeing the Game Awards, right? The Game Awards are going full shill mode. They're trying to promote like their brand of creators, right? They're shoving people like Hideo Kojima, Sean Murray, Neil Druckmann, like Sven, like these absolute hacks who have never produced like a good game in their lives over like, genuinely talented people like Fujibayashi, like Anoma, like Miyamoto, like all of these great talents who did nothing but produce great games in 2023. Like, did Pikmin 4 get acknowledged at all for anything? Did Fire Them Engage? Did did Advance Wars? Did anything? Cereza and the Lost Demon? Like so many absolute bangers came out in last year and in 2022, and all of it went ignored by the mainstream gaming press. They did everything they possibly could to downplay the Nintendo games while hyping up Larian Studios, while downplaying all of like the crazy problems that Larian was having behind the scenes with Hasbro. Right, the layoffs at Hasbro have already hit the studio, and Larian has declared they're never going to work with Hasbro again. They're never going to produce a Baldur's Gate 4. Oof. So sad for those of you who cared about Baldur's Gate 3, all five of you. Like that is really interesting to see. So right now we are we are in this like era where gamers are beginning to understand that gaming journals do not dictate taste, right? They have no standards. Everything they do is an attempt to push an agenda, selling some kind of product or ideology onto you. Like the gamer has to understand that the reason that Nintendo is the best in the industry is because they produce the best games. Anybody who denies that fact needs to be denounced and ignored.